Hi, I'm Peter Brusso, and I'm going to talk to you about integrated marketing today. Integrated marketing plays a bigger role today than ever before because we have a number of different marketing channels that we can, as marketers, choose from. I have heard over the last 2 months more people asking me to help them or their marketing department because they don't understand the internet, for example, or the opportunities or how to leverage the internet for particular businesses. Well, let's just look a little bit of a historical look. One time there wasn't TV, wasn't even radio. But as these new mediums came around, marketing had to change. No different from today. We had Web 1.0, and now we have Web 2.0. Web 1.0, the big challenge there was to get people to your website, for example, and get them to keep coming back every day, seeing what's new, what's happening. Well, that didn't work. Web 1.0 collapsed on itself, basically, because of that lack of stickiness, that lack of being able to interact with a client and keep them coming back for more. If they have to be proactive and think about it, it's a very tough thing. What happened in Web 2.0, one of the parts of the revolution of 2.0 media, is the fact that RSS feeds became available. RSS stands for Real Simple Syndication. Not too geeky. It's really simple. If you take a newspaper, you have a subscription to a newspaper. If you paid that subscription and you're in good standing, your newspaper will come in the morning or the evening or whatever you've chosen, and you don't have to think about it. It just shows up there. Well, it's the same thing with an RSS feed. Once you have somebody on your site and they like your material, they like your show, whatever it is you're doing, when they click the RSS feed button, it goes right to their feed reader. Whether they're using iTunes or Google, there's a number of readers that people utilize, and that helps to aggregate and pull together new stuff that they're interested in. And that can be drawn from all over the place. It depends on the person, obviously. It's like bookmarking. But now, what's cool about an RSS feed is that each time you do something new, it gets pushed directly to the subscribers. So from a marketing standpoint, it's really important to understand the opportunities that an RSS feed brings you and this new revolution, this new media, which is called Web 2.0. Web 2.0 for me consists of the RSS feed we talked about, but also podcasting and social media. Social media being in the sense that it's a niche market. You, in your business, have different types of clients, but they can probably be formed into niches. Those that are interested in cars, those are interested in red cars or sports cars versus Suburbans or sedans or off-road vehicles. Those all get aggregated into one group. Those are niches. We did an example on one of my podcasts about men that have, or people that have big heads and hats for people with big heads. That would never work in brick and mortar, but it certainly works in the web. And the fact of the matter is that they exist. Didn't know that at the time when we did the show, but they do exist. And basically, it's a niche market. And if you have a social media like a blog where they can all interact together, they bond even closer together, and they're on your site and they're there every day or they're there every week, and you put up a new hat or a new design or a question or whatever, and presto bango, it gets pushed right out to them. It's incredible. And so utilizing new media for your marketing is very, very important in your marketing mix. For example, podcasting, again, wonderful tool. We'll cover that in a little bit later. But podcasting connected with blogging, connected with a good SEO'd website is a tool, is a strategy that you need in your integrated marketing mix. By the way, it isn't just taking a chunk of video and putting it on your website. That is not a podcast. Why don't we just discuss what a podcast really is all about? A podcast, first off, has a bit of that flavor of reality TV, just like sitting here. You can see my computer. People like to see what's around you. They want to get to know you. You become a subject matter expert. People like to buy, but they don't like to be sold. If you see a really slick commercial, a really highly polished commercial as a podcast, you know they're trying to sell you something. A podcast gives something away of value. It builds a relationship with the client or potential client, And therefore, when they want your services, they will prefer your brand because you've developed this relationship. You see, we do business with people that we know and have built a relationship with. That's important. That's the way humans are. So Web 2.0 is actually pushing us back to our roots as humans, how we do business in the beginning. So it's really important that your marketing understands that a podcast isn't a chunk of video or audio, and it certainly just isn't a commercial, because that builds really no value at all. Podcasts help you be able to connect and aggregate in niche markets your potential clients or your current clients. You also become a little bit of a rock star. And that's a good thing. People like to do business with people that are somewhat well known or a little bit on the fun side of life, a character, for example. They like to do business with those people that they know, and podcasting is a way for them to get to know you very well. So as a new medium, podcasting should be embraced from a marketing standpoint, not as a polished commercial. No, it should be utilized almost like reality TV, that kind of voyeuristic fashion to watch something that isn't polished or hasn't been scrubbed, so to speak. That doesn't mean that they're raw. They're nice, or like this one is. And it's really important that they gather the sense of who you are. And that's a bit of podcasting. The other part about podcasting is that it's social. People will comment on it. You encourage people to comment and interact with you on your podcast. From a marketing standpoint, once you've got a podcast going, you can actually invite potential clients, if you want to utilize it as a marketing or a direct marketing tool, to get people to know you. They start talking about your show because they were on your show. They start telling their friends, and presto bango, off you go. Well, podcasting is only one of the new revolutions of Web 2.0. Blogging started long ago in comparison to podcasting, where blogs, if you don't understand about blogs are really like a diary on the internet. You can blog opinions, you can blog comments, you can blog thoughts, blog all kinds of different stuff. And what's important about that is that you get people ultimately to your blog, and they subscribe with an RSS feed to your blog, and they start to follow you. Again, it gets to be a little bit like the podcasting model, a little bit of a rock star. But more importantly, in the case of blogging, I really don't care if anybody reads my blog. The only person I care about reading my blog is that Google will read my blog. And this is the perfect time to start opening up the concept of, how do we really raise above the noise on the internet now? Okay, you have a website. How do you get it well known? Do you advertise on other sites? You put it into Google. And by the way, you have to be extremely proactive with your website. If you allow webmasters or geeks to run it without understanding the principles of everything, you could find yourself blacklisted from Google. Very easy. Keyword stuffing, for example. Some webmasters will actually put your keywords in the same color as the background of the page, so you can't actually read it, but it sits there. So when Google spiders it, goes and the little robots go and take a look at it, they see keywords with the same color as the background. They go, uh-oh, keyword stuffing, that's a no-no, blacklist you. So there's a bunch of downfalls, and that would actually make a very good podcast. There's a bunch of downfalls that you want to avoid, like the plague, on your website. So when we're marketers, we need to think about our website is not there to win an award, a design award. We don't care about design awards. I mean, those are nice and all, but do you want it to win a design award, or do you want it to make money for you? Which of the two is it? Well, it shouldn't be that hard to understand. It's either one or it's the other, but it's not going to be both, probably. Okay? Staying away from certain types of coding and certain types of things, very important. That's for a whole nother podcast, but basically you want to search engine optimize, or have your site search engine optimize, and understand and embrace that. You see, Google is all about relevance. They're in the trust game. When you actually make a query, they expect, or you expect Google to return appropriate material for your question. Well, if Google can't really determine what the appropriate material is on sites, it can actually give you the wrong information, which in that case, you won't use Google much anymore because it's just not worth it. So Google understands that, and it's got to be in the trust game. So to that end, if you make your website easy for Google and relevant for Google, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to like you. They're going to give you an olive branch, essentially, of friendship to you. And that's the approach that one ought to take with their website. It isn't about you. It's about your customer. You don't want to get so geeky and have things in your mind so much that you think you're holier than thou and put up a crazy page and everybody's going to love you because of just who you are. It doesn't happen that way. So it's really important in the long run to understand the philosophy of your website and how it ties with these search engines before you ever start coding, for example. Or if you're going to do a rebuild or you're going to do an upgrade, you've got to understand these terms. And that's a whole nother topic for another podcast, I'm sure. But how do you raise above the noise? Well, the first one is, like we talked about, SEOing your website. The second one I encourage to do is to run a blog. The blog is not on your site, it's someplace else, gets connected to your site via links back and forth, and so when new things happen at your company, not only may you put up a new web page, but you may blog about it as well. Blogs are a little easier. You can blog every day, every week, some periodic amount. Google likes it when a blog is active. That's relevance, trust. It's good data. It's good food for them, for their spiders and their robots. They like that stuff. So utilize that. Your name, your keywords are all the same on your blog as they back over on your website, links back and forth. Very good thing. The third piece about what we call rise above the noise is to podcast. Google loves podcasts. Google can't hear or see your podcasts. There's another company that you submit your podcast to that change everything you talk about into spoken word. Those go directly to Google. Those come from another source, not you, not your blog. Google goes, ooh, coming from another source, more relevance. You get racked up in the list. So this particular strategy of embracing these particular three key pieces of raising above the noise of your internet marketing is really, really important for marketers to understand that more than ever before, we now have to embrace not only the web, not only podcasting, not only blogging, we're not even going to talk about Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn yet. Those are all social medias, again, that a good marketer should have some visibility in those areas for sure. Relevant visibility, not just be there, relevant visibility. And then understand. I invented this thing called the wheel of marketing. And it's like a wheel. At the hub is the core of your company, your beliefs, your ethics. It's the core of who you are as a company, how you do business, why you do business. And each spoke that comes out and touches the rim of the wheel is a channel. Podcasting, TV, radio, direct mail, conventions, those kinds of things. And they touch a piece of the rim. And your customers really exist on this rim in niche markets. You see, people that listen to podcasts have a certain nature about them. People that you would send direct mail campaign might have a uniquely different niche to them than the people that are going to read your blog or going to your website or come to a convention or come to a lecture. And so it's very important to understand that these spokes are channels. Channels can interact and interlace, particularly in the case of the web, and will do so, whether you like it or not, and you must take advantage of that and connect those together in the appropriate way. Keywords, links, relevance. Relevance is the key. And so, as marketers, we need to embrace this new media. As I mentioned before, putting a chunk of video on a website is not a podcast. Matter of fact, I'm convinced you really don't want to put your podcasts on your site unless you have a very active site. You'd like to put them off your site because that way when Google runs into them, it sees your stuff in a different location than your website. Your relevance starts to go up again. And it is, on the internet, a case of relevance. You see, it used to be, well, in the early 90s, the web didn't exist, so people found you by the yellow pages, by your TV ads, for example. Well, now 80%, well actually over 80% of the people who want or are looking for something, they start on the web. Phone books, old school, maybe you have to be there. I'm not convinced anymore. That's an old media that's dying. Now embrace the new media. Well, if you're a law firm, for example, you're amongst hundreds upon thousands of law firms. How does a person determine that you're the right one for them? If they can't find you on the web or you're buried in these multiple pages, not a good place. So having a strategy in your marketing mix that helps to raise you up out of the noise on the internet is a really, really positive thing and a requirement. Otherwise, if you don't do this, your competitors will figure it out ultimately, and they're the only ones that are going to be listed on the first 10 or 15 pages of a search. You'll be buried. And if 80% of the people are starting to look on the web now, what is that going to tell you? Okay? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, even though I am one. So I think it's really important to understand and embrace this new media. Okay, so let's talk about podcasts for a minute. It used to be everybody thought about podcasts had to be stuck on an iPod. Well, Apple was very smart about its marketing and being able to sell iPods and podcasting and music all together. But the fact of the matter is you can consume podcasts on your computer. Most podcasts are, in fact, still consumed on the computer. Although, with the advent of the MP3, MP4 players, both the Zunes and the iPods, and now Blackberries, and you can consume podcasts on iPhones. So mobile media is getting to be extremely important. And again, if your marketing mix isn't hitting the mobile media market, you're getting left behind again one more time. The podcasts are really, really important because they are time shifted and location shifted. Again, for example, if you want to watch a TV program, Wednesday at 7 o'clock, you got to be there, or TiVo it. TiVo is kind of like an iPod in a way. It's a recording device. Unfortunately, it's still at home. It can't go with you. You can't listen to it when you travel, if you commute or exercise. I know I listen to podcasts when I exercise or when I commute. And for me, it's more important. I'm more apt to really want to listen to that, and I look forward to listening to that podcast. And therefore, if they're selling something, I'm more apt to purchase it because I'm more interested in it at that time. If a person comes and knocks on your door and tries to sell you something and you're in the middle of dinner, you're not apt to want to buy that product. Matter of fact, you're kind of annoyed about it. Well, podcasting takes all that away. Again, as I mentioned before, podcasting, you become a subject matter expert. Podcasting, at the heart of podcasting, is giving something away to your customers, your listeners, and enriching their lives. You see, people pay you money because you add value in their life. Well, podcasting is the same way. As long as a good podcast is adding value, you're giving something to them that they can take away and use today. You're building that relationship. Then when they want your brand, when they want you, they know where to find you. And it works all the time. Again, it's a relationship build. It's niche marketing at its finest. So podcasting is extremely important to embrace when it comes down to marketing, as I've been pointing out. So embracing these new spokes, these new channels, and understanding that when you're touching a podcast listener, they have a certain profile about them. Matter of fact, I've heard that podcasters spend lots more money on product than people who just surf the web. That's an important thing for a marketing person to understand. Podcasting can be used in so many different ways, from membership generation to education, to upselling, to building a relational database. There's just a ton of different things podcasting can be used for that enhances the marketing mix. Doesn't take away the fact you need a business card, doesn't take away the fact you need brochures, because you do need all those things. Let's talk business cards for a second. InfoCard. We've been pioneering a small business size CD-ROM, which I'll float one over on this podcast. And these are really cool because they're a CD-ROM that in fact carries video, and up to 10 minutes of video, believe it or not, and then clickable sections. So people buy for emotion backed up by logic. The emotional part of the business card size CD-ROMs is, of course, the video. You can break that video up into 2-minute sections, for example, all clickable. So if your product line has it such that you can have 2 minutes on this and 2 minutes on that and 2 minutes on something else, when a client gets to one of these CD-ROMs, first off, it's a wowie factor. They can't wait to go see what's on it because they're curious. People are just generally curious. And if they're interested in red sports cars, and you have in fact video on a red sports car, you have video on SUVs and off-road vehicles, they're going to go over to the sports car right away and immediately get excited by what they see. Then you have clickable sections that bring them to text or testimonials or numbers of things like that, and clickable sections, clickable links actually go right to your website, right to your podcast, right to your blog, whatever it is, or make that call. They're a fantastic tool. That is a new tool that everyone should be using to help convey what it is that their company does and what benefits your company brings to that potential viewer. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, but they're great. Going back to a business card, what is a business card for? Is to get you remembered. That they actually see something in your card, they make a comment about your card, there should be something noteworthy about that they'll remember you and how unique your card was. Later they can find you obviously with the contact material information. It's right on the CD, right on the card. Well, our CD-ROMs have covers on them, obviously, labels that are printed just like you would find on a business card, except for they're bootable and viewable via computer. Most people have computers these days, and if they don't, the low-tech outside, it still works the same as a business card would work. There's your contact information. But they'll show it around by, wow, have you ever seen one of these things? And it has a viral marketing component that a standard business card will never have. Nice thing about them too, they're upgradable, changeable, things like that. So you, as your company changes, your business cards, CD-ROM wise, can change with you almost effortlessly. So you still need all of these particular marketing mixes out there for yourself and your company, but you need to embrace what Web 2.0 is. And in summary, I want to tell you, Web 2.0, the RSS feed, it's also social media. It's also being relevant to Google, relevant to search engines. It's, in our particular way of thinking about it, this triangle again of SEO in your website, of having your podcast going and having your blog going to help drive you up out of the noise in the search engines so people can find you on the internet. This is extremely important. Putting up a website isn't it. Just putting up a chunk of video, commercial or not, on a website somewhere is not podcasting. It isn't it. Google won't care at all about that, and you'll be lost. So as marketers, we have to embrace this new technology. We just must. And if your company doesn't, then maybe they want to have me come talk to them or find another professional that understands the web and how it's tied into marketing. And that's a very key thing. I want to thank you very much for watching this podcast, and I encourage you to leave me a comment, send me an email, and thank you very much. Again, I'm Peter Brusso of Infocard.cc. Podcasting, what is it? Why is it important for you and your business? Podcasting is like having your own radio show. It allows people to actually get it and put it on their iPods or their MP3 devices. They're able to then take that with them and listen to it when they want to, and they get a chance to listen to what they want to. So iPods and other MP3 devices have literally time shifted and subject shifted what people listen to, when they listen to it, where they listen to it. So from a podcast standpoint, what's it mean for your business? Well, behind me, and I'll show a screenshot, is switchpod.com. One of many services that allow you to go ahead and develop your own podcasts and serve them on the web. They'll also help you link over to the major podcast areas that people go hunt for podcasts, like iTunes. I think there's Google Podcasts, there's Yahoo Podcasts, there's Podcast Alley, just to name a couple, that you can actually get your material linked over to. SwitchPod is its own little community, and it's a very cool thing because podcasting used to be very expensive to do. The actual process of podcasting isn't that expensive, but to serve it, the bandwidth, what they call, has been historically very expensive, and people charge by bandwidth. So some places like Twit sounds terrible, but it's This Week in Tech, which you can find on iTunes. I suggest everybody listen to Twit. Was hosted free by AOL to give them bandwidth. Well, now with the right places, that's all free. Blip TV, blip.tv is another place where you can host for free. No membership at all, literally your podcast and your video blogging for free is another possibility. I chose SwitchPod to try it. It has an incredibly helpful staff. Now, SwitchPod also has some tools that allow you to produce your own podcasting. There's a website called Audacity, which has a free tool as well, so you can get a microphone, do your broadcast, clean it up, and then upload it to SwitchPod, and then put it out on the iTunes and some of the other aggregators. And iTunes should be thought of as an aggregator, like when you go to Google or to Yahoo to find something, to search for something. iTunes is the same kind of thing for music, video, podcasting. It's an aggregator. And there are a number of aggregators, as I said before, Blip TV. YouTube has been in the news lately and is an aggregator for video and video blogging. So it's similar in vein of that, SwitchPod is. A lot smaller. But the most important thing about SwitchPod is it doesn't charge at all for serving your particular podcast. So no matter how popular you get, no matter how many people download it, you're not going to get charged anymore. Very affordable for the business person or even the amateur. No doubt about it. Now, let's talk about why you should do podcasting. Podcasting has so many reasons, but one of the first ones is this is viral marketing at its finest. You're going to get subscribers, people that will actually listen to what you have to say, and you get a connection. And then if you put product placement, or you have sponsored by ads, or you get them back to your website, you can upsell and sell your services, product, or whatever it is you do to make money. Now, talk about traffic. This is a phenomenal thing. I started podcasting about 2.5, 3 months ago, and I've got over 7,000 subscribers to my podcast. I don't know what they want to listen to, but clearly I have something they like. Just being modest there. But the fact of the matter is, I was floored at the number of subscribers. I was even more floored with the fact that drove 5,000 hits, unique visitors into my site the first month I started doing this thing. And now I think I'm upwards of 15,000 unique visitors a month to my website. That's a phenomenal number. I think generally all due to podcasting. I did, do some forum work, but the forum stuff you can track where they're going and coming in from, and you talk about a certain thing, so you have a metric to kind of gauge the visitor, but the other ones are coming in from iTunes. It is a phenomenal thing. iTunes has about 87% of all the subscribers and people that find me via iTunes, not SwitchPod, by the way. SwitchPod, again, is the host that serves the podcast. So podcasting can be an absolutely fabulous thing to do from a viral marketing standpoint, but also, of course, driving traffic to your site. The other thing that podcasting really does, that's kind of a sneaker, is that if you have a potential client, you can steer them to your podcast. They're free. They listen to them. Essentially, you can spin them up as to what they need to think about, and thus they become more of an order-taking tool and an education tool than you would have ever thought of before. I know I have a lot of clients who will ask me questions, and I'll say, to save time, go to iTunes, download this, and they can listen to it from their computer. They don't need an iPod to do it. And listen to, for example, elevator pitches, which I just finished a little bit ago. And it'll tell you and make you understand why taglines are important. So as I'm talking to clients and talking about either a video card, a CD-ROM like InfoCard does, or to get into their own podcasting, or to help them with a PR event, or to change a person's, a company's appearance via podcasting, I use it as a tool to go educate my clients. So I don't have to sit there and try to talk to them. They can go listen to it when they want to, and they go, ah, I understand, I understand. So when I start talking taglines, when I start talking viral marketing, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. It makes your time with your potential client or client more fruitful, a little richer, because you can focus in on the subject matter or the issue you're trying to solve for them versus trying to educate them at the same time. So I utilize it as an educational tool. So podcasting is a phenomenal way. Now, the other thing about podcasting that I think is important, I submit my podcast, both video and audio podcast, to a site that actually changes the video or the audio into searchable words. And that's a very important thing to do. And there's a number of sites out there that do this kind of thing, so that Google, when you Google my name, or you Google Marketing 101, or you Google one of my keywords, I have an opportunity of coming up as a podcast. Otherwise, Google would never know about you. So it's important, and that's why you use blogs, by the way. When you do a blog for your podcast, that becomes the food for the search engines, and they're able to find you that way. But again, there are services that are free, by the way, so you can go submit your podcast to them. So it helps to drive more traffic to your site. When people do searches for you, it helps to educate your client, your podcasts do. You can also, of course, if you have a series of podcasts, you can actually preload them onto an iPod, like I mentioned earlier, Pocket Seminars. That's a coined term by another company, but you can get these small MP3 players that are preloaded with your material on them, with your logo. And if you get a potential client that you really think is gonna go, you know, you can hand them one of those and say, here, spin yourself up on interior decorating or design, whatever it is you do, and you'll get a chance to, when we talk next time, you'll be a lot more educated about the topic matter, and it will help clarify what they want to do in their particular area with you. Makes the sell easier. You can also have a chance to upsell people into more services that you might not have pitched when you were there in front of them too. So podcasting can be very important for upselling, for communication, for qualifying, and helping the client get the aspects of your business that they really need and want, as opposed to you trying to sell them. So they sell themselves. It's an upsell type thing. They educate themselves. They find exactly what they want. We covered what a podcast was and why it's important for your business. It's a little summary. Podcasts coming in two flavors, audio and video. So in closing the podcast section, we've talked about the importance of podcasting, that it time shifts material for people to listen to when they want to. It also brands your company. It allows you to viral market. It gets a set of clientele listening to you, people talking about you. It helps to drive traffic to your site. It helps to viral market immensely, and it's used as a tool to help educate your potential and existing clients and keep the connectivity to them, by the way, so that you can have repeat business as well as educating potential new clients and upselling them into your services. So a host of important aspects of podcasting and what it does for your business.